is Larry Brown, followed by Steve Gibonnet.
Good evening, Larry Brown, Liberty Canyon, Country Glen Drive. For the benefit of citizens watching on television at home who are concerned about the preservation of the Chesbro Wildlife Corridor, I'd like to clarify a very important misconception. The developer states he is only going to develop 20 acres and dedicate 50 acres to open space. This sounds attractive on the face. However, a closer look reveals that the 20 acres is the entire meadow. The other 50 acres are basically useless and impassable mountain crags and arroyos. A veteran superintendent of the National Park Service stated that every inch of that meadow is essential to the wildlife corridor. Otherwise, what you end up with is a virtually useless sliver wedged in between a gated monstrosity that looks like Mountain View Estates and the city dump. This effectively compromises the integrity of a proper wildlife corridor into perpetuity. With misconceptions in mind, I'd like to address some of the comments that were made by City Manager Ramirez in the Acorn last week. Mr. Ramirez said that since the land was in litigation, posing a request for proposals was not a requirement. But was it prohibited? Was there some reason not to make this public and get more bids? Oh, he didn't say that. He just said it was not required to share it with other prospective buyers. Then he says TC&G did not technically buy the land. They bought U.S. Bank's interest in a disputed trust deed and entered into a purchase agreement to acquire the deed after a thorough public process. But of course there was no public process. The translation of this double talk is purchasing the trust deed. Of course they did buy the land, technically or untechnically. And it can no longer be done after a thorough public process because there hasn't been one. But you are already obliged to sell. As for that public process itself, I sincerely hope that you do not intend to put the cart in front of the horse and stage a dog and pony show whereby you rubber stamp what was done behind closed doors. That would not be a real public process, but rather an act of fraud. I certainly hope that we're not going to be looking at a whitewashed environmental impact report. There are a lot of experts that are going to view this thing, and I don't believe that any of the parties that are opposed to this project will accept a whitewashed EIR. I didn't believe you when you said you were making this terrible deal because you were afraid of spending money on legal fees. But wouldn't it be ironic if it turned out that you traded a righteous lawsuit that you were about to win, which would have caused you to look like heroes to your constituents, for a new legal vulnerability that leaves you looking like goats to your constituents, who are now just waking up and wondering, why have you declared war on them? Thank you.
Excuse me, I have a question, Mr. Brown. Just a quick question. I was wondering who the spokesman at the National Park Service was that you spoke to.
I'd rather not mention it. I'll speak with you privately if that's all right, just because I got secondhand information, but I'm pretty sure it's on the record, and I will relay that information to you, but I don't want to divulge any confidences, just because the politics and the jobs and all that, I would hate to jeopardize anybody's position.
Thank you.